Abby Quinn. And producer and Academy Award-winning actress, Julianne Moore. Well, thank you to all of you for coming this evening. And I have some questions. I think I'm first, you have an extraordinary cast, we'll talk about that and the cinematography, but I think for some of you know, some of you may not know, that this was originally a Danish film in which the two leads were men. So I would love for you to talk, Bart, about the process as a writer of taking that source material and making it such a tour de force for female characters.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, first of all, thank you all for coming. Suzanne Bier is the original filmmaker of this story. She's a writer and director, and I love her work. And I haven't seen this movie, and producer Joel Michaels, who fell in love with it, fought to keep the rights for about 12 years while he tried to make this film. And when it finally came my direction, I really couldn't see a reason why it should be remade, because she did such a good job the first time, and I felt like it could potentially just diminish her movie. And I just couldn't gain traction. What I loved about her movie was that it's a very unusual combination of something that's very narrative. There are these big moments, these big secrets in the film, but yet it's ultimately like a character piece about humanity, and sort of explored all of the little nooks and crannies of each character. So it was a really unusual marriage, no pun intended, that but I didn't see a reason to make it. And when I was watching the film with Julie, she was very intrigued by this one role, this one character, and was talking about it. And I mentioned it to the producers, and they said, well, why don't you try to write it for two women, do a gender flip, which seemed like something out of like Robert Altman's The Player. And as I started to go down that road, it's hard to talk about this stuff in the press because you don't want to give away all this stuff about the movie. But as I talked about, as I went on this journey, I realized that it was going to actually deepen and make the story even more complex, because Mads Mikkelsen's character, played by Michelle Williams in this incarnation, he didn't know he had a child. He had a lover when he was 18 years old, and he didn't know that he'd gotten his girlfriend pregnant. But allowing Michelle to know and make a conscious choice to give up this child made everyone kind of implicated in this. And it made, what I loved about it is there were no villains, no heroes. Everyone had made these decisions, and these decisions had consequences, and they thought that those had been kind of put to rest, and there's this big comeuppance. But it just enlivened it and gave me my own, it gave me license to make it my own.
And somewhat related, and this is for you, you've been an executive producer on films, and you're a producer on this film. Right. So what was it then for you that, we've heard some of that, but then in terms of not only acting it, but made you really want to also be more involved creatively in the whole process?
Well, this is our fourth film together. Bart and I have made 3 films previous to this. This is the first time I've actually been involved intimately from the very beginning. And it did happen, I think, initially when we watched Suzanne Bier's original film together, and that's when I saw Ralph Lanscar, and I was like, wow, that's the part that I like. Never imagining that the genders would be flipped, and I would have that opportunity. So when we became involved and Bart was writing, this is the first time I think in our partnership that he would share his writing with me, and we would talk about where this was going. And I think that I was in terms of language, men and women speak to each other somewhat differently. So there are just nuances in terms of communication. We would talk about that. We talk about kind of, ladders to emotion. I think that was a resource for him in terms of securing locations. I was the person who wrote the email to Michelle, actually, when we were talking about who we want to play Isabel, and Bart was like, I really want to go to Michelle Williams. I'm like, I have her email, let me do it. Which is important, you know, it's interesting, you know, what are the shortcuts to production? How do you get it done? And I mean, obviously, there's a lot that we do in terms of our relationships and relationships that we built over the years. And I think that was where I could offer some real ballast and assistance to him as a producing partner.
That's really phenomenal. It's interesting as well, I think, as in terms of the kinds of scenes that are, and this is a question actually in a way for all of you. There are all these relevant revelations in the film, and all of the revelations have this sort of beginning, middle, and ending kind of big moments that are public and intimate private moments. So I'd love to hear about sort of the writing and directing of that, some of the staging and shooting from the cinematography perspective, and then from both of the actors in terms of, you know, going through those emotions with another actor and then pulling away and having that moment alone.
Well, you're absolutely right. What I loved about this, and I think this is true for many films, is you get to see how people present themselves to the world, and then you get to see who they are in private moments. Really, I think for all of us, one of the biggest challenge with the movie was tone. It's a melodrama, and it's kind of designed to be that. These really big things happen, so I wanted to be careful. I wanted to sort of squeeze as much out of that as I could, but not go over the top. There wasn't a lot of camera movement other than the big drones at the beginning and the end. There weren't a lot of push-ins on people's faces to say, this is the moment to pay attention to. So Julio and I talked a lot about being very objective with the camera and using selective focus to, especially at the wedding, to really show you where we wanted you to train your attention, but not to tell you this is the big moment. And that was the truth. It was the case also, I think, certainly with Julie, right, in your character, where you didn't want there to be any tells, right, as far as we didn't want to wink at anyone. We wanted to make it kind of as rich as possible without leading you too much. So I don't know, Julio, do you want to say something about our process?
Well, you know, working with actors like this, you really have to raise your game as a cinematographer, and because it's kind of like driving a Ferrari. You know, just a little gas and they take off. I've never driven a Ferrari. But anyway, Bart and I have been friends for a long time, for 25 years, and happy that we were able to finally connect again and work together. So it was important for us to have the camera not get in the way of the performances, and if anything, just to be a silent witness and try to just guide the scene to the important parts of the story without calling attention to the camera. So we decided, rather than doing what was done in the original film, which was done so well, with the kinetic camera movement and sort of cinema verite that was so important back in 2006, we decided to go at it in another way and use a large screen format. We shot this with the Alexa 65 camera, which is beautiful, and it was the same camera lenses I used on Roma, to explore intimacy, even though it was a big screen, even though it was a wide angle and widescreen format, but also be able to have the actors play the frame and almost give them more freedom in a way. If my job was done right, and we talked about this a lot, I didn't want the camera to be noticed, but at the moments where the story needed to open up and have some air because of the dialogue and because of the heaviness of the emotional beats, it was there to kind of open it up and take a big breath of air.
There's a beautiful moment, I think the moment that affected me the most as a viewer when I watched the film, and I wasn't there because my character was gone by that point, but as they're kind of walking towards scattering Teresa's ashes, the whole family is assembled, and Michelle leans over and she straightens out the collar of the little boy, and it's really, really very delicate gesture, but what really moved me about it is it's in a wide shot. So you're never pointing out what she's doing. You're saying like, this is how this family has assembled, and it lets you see everybody's participation in this, and you see this little tiny gesture. So it's up to you. You know, it's like they've allowed that. Bart and Julio have allowed you to see that, but they let you see this in this big frame. So you're also responsible for seeing that yourself. And it took my breath away. I was so moved by it. It was just a tiny, tiny, really beautiful human gesture.
I was pretty nervous going into the movie, mostly because I had so many crying scenes. And it was something I was pretty freaked out about beforehand. And I think all that anxiety going into it helped on the day. My second day of shooting was the office scene with Julie. Yeah, and they apologized for me. But I think in a way it was better to start with that and know it in myself that, okay, I think I can do that, maybe I can do the rest of the film. And I listened to a lot of Wilco and Sufjan Stevens, and Julie told me to use the crying that is written on the page as a guideline and to not force it, and that really helped too. It just took the pressure off, I think.
Well, what would you say then? I mean, this is probably a difficult and very broad question in a way, but it seems like you had an opportunity to learn a lot as a young actress. I'd love to hear a little bit more about some of what you learned from working with Julianne Moore and Michelle Williams.
I think just being in their presence, I mean, Michelle and Julie and Billy they were so willing to just get to know me as a person. I think that ultimately really impacted the way that we acted together in our scenes. I think that's all you can really ask for, is just someone who's open and kind and willing to be there with you.
You know what's so cool about what we do, and I've mentioned this to a lot of people, that it's unusual in our business that when you work with people, regardless of their age, in our business it's always a peer-to-peer relationship. Regardless of age or experience, you all enter the same place, and as an actor, you're just expected to bring it. So you might be 17, you might be 90, but we're all going to meet in the same place regardless of our age or experience. And so for us, it's going to, that's where we come to Abby. She comes maybe with less film experience, but she comes with an equal amount of talent and ability. So we want to meet her. So we're interested in coming together like as human beings, and that's very exciting, and it's very unusual. It doesn't happen in a lot of professions, but it does happen in acting, and for that I feel really fortunate.
And Billy would say about Abby, he'd constantly say she's just so available. Yeah. She's just so available whenever we do a scene. And I was shocked by that too, just the availability of all of these actors. Actors in general, I'm shocked, because I would read through scenes with Julie in the kitchen trying to get the dialogue right. And I would just be, I'm a terrible actor, so I would be so shocked that she was just Teresa all of a sudden. And to watch them all try to transform and be available just for what was happening in the scene without having planned it, to a T, just being available to what could happen, made it really alive and exciting. It doesn't always add up in every film, but I knew that no matter what, it was going to be alive.
How beautiful was Abby's song?
Yeah, that's very
She wrote it too. Okay, I think my friend Campbell might be in this screen, but he helped produce it.
Yeah.
I think he's in here. Yeah, so again, Campbell.
There is a really beautiful shot that we were talking about a little bit before we came in here that's on the cover of the American Cinematographer magazine, that it's this moment after the confrontation and some of the revelations, and Isabel goes out onto the terrace and she's wrapped herself in the red scarf, and she has a cotton dress, kind of an Indian cotton dress on, and all of kind of the trappings, this place of comfort, and the New York skyline almost even feels a little bit like India. So I'd love for you to talk a bit about that scene, and then to use that to segue a bit about the contrast of shooting in India and shooting in New York City.
Sure, you begin.
Well, sometimes your best gaffer is Jesus. So, in this film, we really had to take advantage of those little gifts from God, from above, that you get. So oftentimes, we'd be doing something, and then clouds would come in, and I'd say, come on, get out there, Michelle, get out there. And it just, it felt, one of the things we were trying to do was not to make a film that was, one movie was in the US, the other piece of the movie was in India without some sort of ties from one to the other. So whether it was the shawl or whether it was the coloring, we were trying to kind of connect them. And that was a moment where, we're just fortunate it was there, and this beautiful camera we were using, it just loved it. And I really didn't do much more than just to capture a happy accident.
Yeah, and I think Isabel, we kind of ended up associating her with nature, with big sky, with being outside, and a lot of the rest of the film was inside, or even if it was in the yard, it was around the house. And so, as you were alluding to before when we were talking, it was this kind of moment where the two of them met. We tried not to do just plain establishing shots in New York City. We tried to have someone in them. There wasn't a lot of exterior of New York unless you were up on that balcony, really. And that allowed us, as Julio said, we kind of recognized our opportunity there. It was really a gift. And the other thing that was a gift, just as a filmmaker, was that Isabel, because she was only intending on staying in New York for 2 days, had a very limited wardrobe. So it meant that we could throw her out there with her shawl on, which was her protective layer, which was her emotionally protective layer, and was such a different color than was everywhere else in the movie. And if we needed something in the editing that was going to act as a bridge, it was always available to us. So that was just sort of taking advantage of something that's given to you.
That's great. One of the other things I really love about the film and appreciate is that it presents, and this comes as a result of the gender flip, is the complicated relationships that women can have with motherhood. And I'd love to hear more about that in terms of the writing process, and I'm assuming there's some of your input as well into shaping some of that, because that's something rare to see on screen, and I think it's really exciting to see that, and then of course this young woman then who also has to affirm and reaffirm her identity in the midst of these two doing, one's the clear matriarch and the other is sort of coming into her life and has that blood relation.
Right. I love that. That was the thing that really resonated so much for me, and so I think it was so unusual to see where you see these two very powerful women who have very different ideologies and belief systems, and they both are very firm in their own beliefs and incredibly judgmental of the choices the other one has made. Neither one of them is right necessarily. It's just that they're pretty strong in their own beliefs, and I like the verbal sparring. I like the idea that they were both entering into this relationship. They were sort of wary of each other. I love that Teresa, who's somebody who has who's really created her entire life, has built this great big business and this big beautiful family, and is so invested in everything that she's created, finally has to reach out to someone, the person she's most loath to ever see in her entire life. She has to ask this woman for help. And rather than ask her, she actually tries to manipulate the situation, because that would be, she wouldn't want to be direct with it. She'd like to make it happen. And she's finally forced to say, I need, God, you can do this for everybody else. Why can't you do this for me? And then what she's doing too, which is sort of incredible, is she's saying, please help me and please take my family, the thing that she holds, most dear. And then of course Isabel is forced to reconcile with this idea that she wasn't ready to parent this child at this point in her life, and then has to address that with her own biological child, which is devastating. So all these people have made the best choice they can in the times they've made them, and they have to live with these consequences and reconcile themselves to it. I love, you talked about earlier, when you were talking about public moments, private moments. One of the things that I love too is really early on in my scene with Abby, when we're arguing about whether or not she should get married, I have this line where I say, you know, remember you'll always be mine. And Bart said to me, he goes, I didn't think you were going to be so emotional. I said, well, I didn't know either, you know, it just happened. But I thought that's Teresa trying to say, you know, it's a weird kind of foreshadowing. She's saying, like, I know that you're going to find out really soon that you're not mine in that way, but I'm trying to say to you, you are. I chose you, and don't forget it. You know, so it's a weird moment early in the film that is public, but is actually private for Teresa.
And I love this question about who is more her mother. You know, this woman who gave birth to her, this woman who raised her, and there's no answer to that.
No.
I also love that. It's very unusual, I think, to see this person being raised by, he's going to be needed to be raised by these two women who have very different philosophies and very different abilities to be emotional. You know, it's like Isabel is really limited, and I thought that was really brave of Michelle to play it in that way. She's really limited in her capacity to be emotional because I believe because she stuffed that away. That decision took its toll on her, but yet she felt like she was the Mother Teresa because she was away at this orphanage. So it's fascinating. It just brought up a lot of questions in a way that excited me. There's questions that didn't have to be answered because there's no answer to them.
Well, and on the other side of that, I think for Oscar's character, I think it's also as well very exciting and to see again this character caught in the middle and this shift and change of the father who can't let go of his child. And so from a writing perspective, can you talk about the need for, you know, the way in which you built that character and his relationship with the two women?
Yeah, that also enlivened the story for me because in Suzanne's movie, that's a woman, that's the mother character, and she in Suzanne's movie is really a stay-at-home mom who, and there's an implication that she's married the rich husband just to have a stable life. So I was really interested, just as a father of two kids who feels very involved with them and was when they were younger too, in kind of breaking that stereotype in the same way we were breaking this female stereotype. And I tried to, and I wanted to give Oscar something else, you know. It oddly was one of those times where I stumbled upon something that maybe is like a sociological limitation of ours or something, because it felt like too much of a statement to make him a stay-at-home dad. It felt, and I'm not sure that was right or wrong, it just felt like I wanted to give him something more, and to tell you the truth, it was also something that was more attractive to someone playing the role. That was different in our movie, because I believe there was real love between Teresa and Oscar. But I created this role for him as an artist, and that was something that he had passed on to Grace genetically. And just this idea of this guy and the story that Grace recounts when they met Teresa the first time, carrying this baby in a baby yarn, who's under a year old, walking through New York City. It was just such a rich story. It gave us such a platform to leap off from. And I think was what I love is it made Oscar feel self-righteous a little bit, until he gets called out for what he's done as well. And this realization that no one is perfect.
Yeah, and these acts that we think that we're committing because we're being good, are they good? Who will feel harmed by doing the thing that we think is right?
Well, I do want to get back to Julio, and we've been talking a lot about performance, and so in terms of also tracking performance and going back to in terms of going between India and New York, how much did you actually shoot in India with Michelle?
We shot there for 4 days. We were there for a week and a half before, looking for locations that we could shoot with very little lighting because our resources were so small. And what helped me the most was to try to think like Bart and to try to think about what was important in the scenes, and if we weren't going to do a lot of coverage, if we weren't going to do many shots, that the shots that we did do were thematic to what the point of the scene was. And that was sort of my go-to. You know, if I had to tell the story with one shot and one shot only, where would I put the camera? Which is a really good lesson to economize when you're limited, but you still want to tell the story, want to make the point, and I can use whatever I have with my composition, my lighting, and the movement to make the point that Bart is trying to make in the scene. So, yeah, and we also, again, didn't want it to feel like a mixed fruit salad of, oh, here's India and it's all warm and like this, and here's, you know, a whole other look for New York. We wanted to somehow interweave it so that it was more organic, going from one place to the other, and you could intercut from one place and have Michelle's character, you know, remembering and, you know, walking down the street in New York and remembering what it was like to walk down the street in India. So it couldn't be too different, but again, summarizing it was, I think, the key.
And what was very funny is a lot of you probably know when you're shooting an independent film and you don't have a lot of money or a lot of time, you keep shots that you want keep falling off in a day, and some of them are necessary for the storytelling. And you're like, I'll do that tomorrow or tomorrow. And so when we got to India, we flew 30 hours with our cameras. I think there were 12 of us or something, and then we had an Indian crew there. And then we spent the first 3 hours of our first day shooting insert shots of the picture album that we used in the Indian restaurant, because we absolutely needed those for the story, and there was no other time to shoot.
Yes, if you look closely, they're all Indian shots.
So this is a question, I guess, in some ways, both for you, Abby, and for you, Julianne. You know, seeing what you brought to this project, working collaboratively with Bart and as a creative producer, has this perhaps lit the fire for you to be more involved as a creative producer in future projects? And then Abby asked you and sort of seeing, and I asked that because I get very excited. It's like we've been producing and getting involved, and we get to see like this different kinds of stories. I think it's really exciting. So that is my question.
Yeah, I think it's really inspiring that Julie produced this film and that many women are doing the same thing. It's finding projects that might not be available or offered to you or for women, and creating that for yourself. And I think it's something that I can do too at 23, and it's something I think a lot about and hope to do soon.
Yeah, I think it was exciting. It was exciting for me. I mean, this is something that I'm relatively new to as well, and I think our business is changing so dramatically for all of us so very quickly. And you start to wonder, think, well, who's in charge? Well, who's developing this stuff? Then you look around and you go, well, I guess it's me. If you want to do it, try to find it. If you have tasted material, if you have things that you think speak to you, generally if something speaks to you personally, intimately, and strongly, it's going to echo with somebody else too. That's been my experience as an actor. When it's resonating with me, I'm like, oh, it's going to resonate with others as well. So I also think about that in terms of material. So I'm like, all right, so if I can take my taste as an actor and amplify it and find that material and begin to develop it, what's challenging for me as an actor is the length of time it takes. And I think my husband is used to that as a filmmaker. He's used to the development process. For me, it's been really frustrating. And he'll remind me, he's like, you started now and it's going to be ready 3 years from now. But I just have to get used to that pace. But it's been very rewarding and really valuable because you can do it. It's slow, it's difficult, but you might find a way to present something. I think just the opportunity to say like, oh, this woman who I'm familiar with, who I've seen in the real world, this very powerful person with this big family. Like I said, we haven't seen her represented very often on screen, and yet we see it in our lives, so, you know, why not? So then I'm like, okay, then I'll do it. And it's very exciting.
Fantastic, thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for